The Galactic Council had been convened for an urgent meeting. Tensions were running high across the galaxy as the Virile Dominion, an expansionist faction, continued to grow in strength. With their powerful fleets and relentless ambition, they were a threat to everyone. The Council, a group made up of the most powerful and influential species in the galaxy, had already started debating how to respond. Some advocated for immediate war, while others suggested negotiating with the Dominion. But no matter the approach, the situation was quickly becoming critical. The Council's chambers were vast, built for species of all sizes. The seats were arranged in a large circle, with representatives from dozens of different worlds. Each species had its own unique appearance, some with scales, others with wings, and a few with multiple limbs. All of them had come to discuss the future of the galaxy, but none of them knew what was about to unfold. A tall figure stepped into the chamber. He was dressed in a simple but authoritative uniform, and his presence seemed to command the room. The council members looked at him with some curiosity. The human representative was not a well-known figure in this galaxy. In fact, humans were still considered newcomers in this grand intergalactic council. Many species viewed them as insignificant. The human stepped forward confidently and spoke in a calm, steady voice. "I come with a warning," he said. "Do not involve humans in your wars." The room fell silent. One of the more senior representatives, a long-limbed species from the planet Varnock, chuckled. "And why should we listen to a human? You are a young species, barely established in galactic affairs. What can your people possibly offer?" The human ambassador, Ambassador David Moore, remained unfazed. His words were clear and deliberate. "You do not understand what you are dealing with. Humanity is not like the other species you are familiar with. We are not just another race of soldiers. When we are provoked, when we are drawn into conflict, we become something else entirely. You do not want to face that." Another representative, this time from the aquatic planet Hydronus, leaned forward with a scoff. "You're threatening us, human? Do you honestly think your people could stand against the might of the Virile Dominion?" David Moore met the representative's gaze, his expression unwavering. "I'm not threatening anyone," he said. "I'm simply stating a fact. If you drag us into this war, it will be a mistake. You won't be able to stop us once we're involved. Trust me, the Virile Dominion will regret it." The council members exchanged glances, whispering among themselves. They could sense the conviction in the human's voice. But to them it seemed more like arrogance, a product of a young species trying to prove itself. Finally, the head of the council, an ancient being known as Thelia, spoke. She was a member of the highly respected Jaran species, whose technological prowess was unmatched across the galaxy. "You have made your point, human," Thelia said. "But your warnings will not sway us. The Virile Dominion poses a threat to the stability of the galaxy, and we will act accordingly." David Moore sighed. "Then you will learn the hard way," he said, his voice tinged with regret. "I tried to warn you. Humans are not like other species. If we are forced into a war, we will not stop until we've won, and that won't be something you can undo." Thelia waved him off, signaling that the meeting was over. "Leave us, human," she said. "We have heard enough." David Moore turned to leave, but not before he cast one last look over his shoulder. "Remember my words," he said quietly. "You'll regret ignoring us." The doors closed behind him, leaving the council to discuss the situation. Most of them were still dismissive of his warning, believing that humanity's involvement in galactic affairs was still insignificant. But some of them couldn't shake the unease that David Moore's words had stirred within them. What if he was right? What if humanity truly had something they had yet to understand? As David Moore made his way back to Earth's ambassadorial quarters, he couldn't help but feel a sense of dread. He knew that his warning would likely go unheard, but he had to try. Earth's Federation had already made preparations for the worst. If the Council ignored his warning, humanity would step in. and when they did, the galaxy would have no idea what had hit it. This is the first part of the story, written in simple and clear English while maintaining engagement. The story begins with the Council's dismissal of the human warning, setting the stage for the rest of the conflict. Let me know if you'd like any adjustments or further details. Omini. The days following the Council meeting passed in tense silence. While the Galactic Council debated among themselves, the Virel Dominion continued to expand, pushing further into Council-controlled space. Every faction in the galaxy was on edge, trying to predict where the next battle would occur. But as the war drums of the Dominion grew louder, the Council members remained confident in their plan. They had decided a preemptive strike would be the answer. David Moore, Earth's ambassador, had returned to his quarters with a heavy heart. He had tried to warn the Council. He had begged them not to involve humanity in their endless galactic conflicts, but they had refused to listen. They had dismissed humanity's strength and underestimated the consequences of pulling Earth into their wars. Now all David could do was wait. He spent most of his time in quiet reflection, his thoughts focused on Earth. It was his duty to protect his home, but even he knew that if the Council and the Virel Dominion clashed, it could mean disaster. Despite the gravity of the situation, David knew that Earth was far from ready for a full-scale galactic war. Their fleet was small compared to the vast established empires of the galaxy. But humans had something that the other species didn't: resilience. If the Council pushed them into conflict, they would fight with everything they had. Meanwhile, in the heart of the Council chambers, the plan for the preemptive strike took shape. The Virel Dominion had taken several key worlds, and the Council had decided it was time to act. They would send a large fleet to wipe out the Dominion's strongest forces, hoping to destroy their ability to continue expanding. The Council believed that the Virel Dominion's forces were the key to the entire conflict, and that a decisive victory would end the war quickly. In a large strategy room on the planet Aros, representatives from the most powerful Council factions gathered. The room was quiet, the air thick with tension. At the head of the table stood Thelia, the Jaren representative. Her sharp eyes scanned the room, watching her fellow leaders as they discussed the attack. "We are prepared," Thelia declared, her voice steady. "We will strike fast, and we will strike hard. The Virel Dominion will never see us coming. Their fleet is strong, but they are not as advanced as we are." A representative from the Hethari Alliance, a large insectoid species, chimed in. "The Dominion will be expecting a counterattack. We must hit them before they have a chance to regroup. If we wait too long, their forces will only grow stronger." "Agreed," Thelia said. "We have the advantage now. The Dominion's forces are scattered and their supply lines are weak. This is our chance." At that moment, a transmission arrived from Earth's Federation. David Moore's face appeared on the screen. He was calm as always, but there was an underlying sense of urgency in his voice. "The Virel Dominion may be your concern right now," Moore began, "but you are making a mistake. We told you not to involve us. But now the situation has changed." One of the Council members, a towering armored figure from the rodent species, scoffed. "The humans are not part of this war, Moore. You're still new to galactic politics. Stay out of our way." "David," Moore's expression hardened. "I am not here to argue," he said. "I am here to warn you. If you make this move, you will drag humanity into a war that you are not prepared for." Thelia raised a hand, signaling the others to be silent. "You have made your point, human. But we are not interested in your warnings. The Dominion must be stopped. And we will stop them, with or without your help." David Moore's gaze remained steady. "You have no idea what you're getting yourselves into. We've seen what happens when empires fight over dominance. You won't control humanity, not like you think you will." The transmission ended abruptly, and Thelia turned to the others. "We have been warned, but we will move forward as planned." David Moore sat back in his seat, his fingers tapping rhythmically on the desk. He had expected this. The Council had always been overconfident, thinking they could control the galaxy. With their military might and politics, they failed to realize that humans were not like the other species. They didn't play by the same rules. They fought for survival, for freedom, for what was right. Back on Earth, the Federation's leaders were preparing their fleet. David had worked tirelessly to strengthen humanity's defenses, but Earth was not yet ready to face the full might of the galaxy. Still, he knew that once the Council's attack began, humanity would be forced to act. The moment the first shot was fired, Earth would be dragged into the war. Days later, the Council fleet, a massive armada of warships, left the safety of their home planets and headed toward the Virel Dominion. The galaxy watched, waiting for the decisive battle to unfold. And yet, as the fleet surged toward the enemy, there was an unsettling feeling in the air. Some, even within the Council, couldn't shake the thought that they had made a grave mistake. As the battle began to unfold, the Council's forces engaged the Dominion head-on. The fight was fierce, with weapons blazing across the void of space. But there was a sudden and unexpected twist. The Virel Dominion had been ready. Their fleets, though smaller, were more cunning and ruthless than the Council had anticipated. The battle was not as one-sided as the Council had hoped. In the chaos of the engagement, a strange transmission came through to Earth's Federation. It was a call for help, not from the Council, but from the Dominion. "We need your assistance," the message said, crackling through the speakers. "The Council's forces are overwhelming us, but they are not what they appear to be. We need a human force. Please, we beg you." David Moore listened intently, his mind racing. For a moment, he was caught in a moral dilemma. The Dominion had long been considered a threat, but now they were asking for help. He couldn't ignore the desperation in their voice. Still, the warning he had given the Council echoed in his mind. As the battle raged on, one thing became clear. Humanity was not just an innocent bystander in the galaxy anymore. They were involved, whether they liked it or not. The battle between the Galactic Council and the Virel Dominion was unfolding across the stars. In the vast reaches of space, the soundless clashes of warships were deafening, their destructive power creating shockwaves across entire systems. The Council's fleet, massive and seemingly unstoppable, had entered Dominion space with overwhelming force. But as the battle raged on, a surprising turn of events began to take shape. The Virel Dominion, though outnumbered, fought with a fury that the Council had not anticipated. Their ships, smaller and seemingly weaker than those of the Council, were equipped with advanced technology that allowed them to move faster, fire more accurately, and anticipate enemy movements. Their tactics were brutal and unconventional, making them unpredictable on the battlefield. As the battle stretched on, the Council's forces began to falter. Despite their superior numbers, they struggled against the speed and agility of the Dominion fleet. And that's when the unexpected happened. Humanity, which had so far remained on the sidelines, suddenly made its presence known. A fleet of human warships, vastly smaller than the Council's forces but far more dangerous in their own right, emerged from the shadows of a nearby nebula. The ships were sleek, their designs a stark contrast to the traditional bulky warships of the Council. The humans had perfected the art of stealth and surprise, and their ships moved with a grace that seemed almost unnatural to the watching alien eyes. The first salvo from the human fleet was swift and precise. Human warships opened fire with powerful energy beams that cut through the Dominion's defenses like a hot knife through butter. The enemy ships, already under pressure from the Council's forces, were caught off guard. The Dominion fleet, which had once seemed so imposing, was now on the defensive. David Moore watched the transmission feed from Earth's command center, his expression cold but resolute. He had known this moment was coming, even if the Council had refused to listen to his warning. Humans were not like the other species in the galaxy. They had a way of fighting that no one else could match, a combination of resourcefulness, unyielding willpower, and an unmatched capacity for strategy. As the human fleet continued to cut down Dominion ships, Moore's thoughts turned to the battle ahead. Earth's Federation was still small, and the fleet was nowhere near large enough to take on the full might of the galaxy. But this fight was different. This was humanity's moment to prove that they were not to be underestimated. And they were proving it in the most spectacular way possible. The human warships continued their assault with laser-like focus. Each ship was equipped with highly advanced shielding technology, making them almost impervious to the Dominion's counterattacks. While the Council's fleets were busy with their own battles, the human ships picked apart the Dominion forces one by one, striking with surgical precision. Thelia, the head of the Council, watched the human fleet from the war room with a growing sense of disbelief. She had never imagined that humanity could pose such a threat. "This is impossible," she muttered under her breath as one of the Dominion's largest warships exploded in a fiery blaze. The human ships did not stop there. Instead of retreating after dealing a few blows, they pressed the attack, moving deeper into Dominion territory. Their ships were faster, their tactics more unpredictable. Where the Dominion had relied on brute force, the humans used their intellect and quick thinking to outmaneuver their opponents at every turn. For the first time in the battle, the Council realized that they were not the most powerful force in the galaxy. The humans had turned the tide, and now the Dominion was on the verge of collapse. David Moore received a transmission from the front lines, his face appearing on the screen of the command center. "We've taken out their flagship," he said calmly, though there was a sense of pride in his voice. "The Dominion's fleet is breaking apart. They don't have the strength to fight back anymore." Thelia stared at the screen, her heart heavy with regret. She had dismissed humanity's warning and now saw the consequences of that decision. The Council had assumed they could control the situation, but they were wrong. The humans had proven that they could stand toe-to-toe with any force in the galaxy. Moore's message continued. "The Council needs to make a choice. You can either fight us and risk complete destruction, or you can sit down and negotiate a peace. Your choice." The words hung in the air like a challenge. The Council was now at a crossroads. The once mighty galactic powers were in danger of losing their grip on the galaxy, all because they had underestimated humanity. In the aftermath of the battle, as the human warships continued to pick apart the remaining Dominion forces, the Council called an emergency meeting. Thelia's face was grim as she sat at the head of the table, surrounded by the leaders of the most powerful species in the galaxy. "This is not what we planned," she said, her voice tinged with frustration. "We thought we had control of the situation, but now we are in danger of losing everything." A representative from the Varnock species, a short but powerful creature with long, spindly arms, leaned forward. "The humans. They've turned the tables on us. If we continue this war, we risk losing all of our fleets. Our enemies will see us as weak, and they will come for us next." Thelia slammed her fist onto the table, her voice rising. "We cannot back down now. The Dominion must be stopped. We've already sacrificed too much." "But at what cost?" another representative asked, his voice trembling. "If we keep fighting, we may lose everything. The humans have already proven their might. What happens if they decide to fight us as well?" The room fell silent as the Council members exchanged nervous glances. They had been so certain of their victory just days before. But now, they were faced with a new reality. Humanity was not just a small player in the galactic game. They were a force to be reckoned with. As the debate raged on, David Moore's words echoed in the minds of every Council member. "You'll regret ignoring us," and deep down, they all knew he was right. The battle had been raging for hours, and the tide was turning. The once formidable Dominion fleet had begun to break apart under the relentless assault of humanity's warships. The virile Dominion, known for their sheer power and merciless tactics, had never faced an opponent like this before. They had thought their advanced technology and aggressive strategies would be enough to overpower the humans, but they were wrong. As the Dominion ships began to retreat, the humans didn't slow down. They pressed on, chasing down every fleeing vessel with a sense of purpose that seemed to defy reason. Each human warship, though smaller than the Dominion's, moved with an intensity and precision that left their enemies scrambling. It was not just their technology or their tactics that made them formidable, it was their unyielding spirit. David Moore stood at the command center of Earth's fleet, watching the live feed of the battle. His face was calm, but there was an undeniable fire in his eyes. He had known that humanity had something special, but seeing it unfold before him like this was something else. His people weren't just surviving, they were thriving. "Keep pushing them back," Moore ordered, his voice steady but filled with determination. "We don't stop until they're finished." The fleet responded, executing the command with military precision. Human ships maneuvered like shadows, appearing where the enemy least expected them and disappearing just as quickly. Every shot fired was carefully calculated, targeting weak points in the Dominion's defenses. The humans were playing a game the Dominion had never encountered, and they were losing. Back in the council chambers, a tense atmosphere hung over the room. Thelia, the head of the Galactic Council, sat at the head of the table, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. She had never imagined that the humans would prove to be such a powerful force. Their fleet was small, compared to the massive armadas of the Council and the Dominion, but their tactics, their adaptability, and their relentless drive had caught everyone off guard. "We cannot allow this to continue," Thelia said, her voice filled with frustration. "If the humans keep pushing, they'll dismantle the entire Dominion fleet. Our reputation will be destroyed." A representative from the Hethari Alliance, a towering insectoid species, spoke up. "We should have never dismissed them. The humans' warning was clear, and now we're paying the price." A third member, an ancient being from the planet, Drax, known for their wisdom, nodded slowly. "The humans are like a storm we cannot control, and we underestimated them." In the midst of the tension, a hologram flickered to life in the center of the room. It was David Moore's face, calm and unwavering. "You were warned," he said simply. "Now the virile Dominion will never be the same, and neither will you." The council members exchanged uneasy glances. They had thought they could manipulate the situation, use the human race as pawns in their galactic game. But now they saw that humans were not like the others. They were a force of nature. "We cannot ignore this any longer," Thelia said, her voice quieter now. "If we don't find a way to end this, the humans will only continue to grow stronger. We must either negotiate or face the consequences." Meanwhile, on the front lines, the human fleet was showing no signs of stopping. As the Dominion fleet scattered, Earth's ships continued to hunt them down. Each victory brought them closer to their ultimate goal, ending the Dominion threat once and for all. But there was something more at stake now. The human fleet wasn't just fighting for survival, they were fighting to prove a point. Every battle they won was a message to the galaxy. Humans were not to be underestimated. They had been underestimated for too long, dismissed as a small, young species with no place in the galactic order. But now they were proving their strength, and the galaxy would have to reckon with that truth. In the command center, Moore received word that the Dominion's last remaining battleship was making its final stand. The massive warship, the Virel's Wrath, was equipped with the most advanced weapons the Dominion had, and it was prepared to go down swinging. But the human fleet wasn't intimidated. They had faced worse before, and they had come out victorious. Moore stood up from his chair, walking to the viewport as he watched the battle unfold on the screens. "This is it," he said quietly. "We finish it here." He knew the risks. If the Dominion's flagship was destroyed, there would be nothing left to stop the humans from taking control of the region. But Moore didn't hesitate. Humanity had already proven its strength, and now it was time to show the galaxy what they were truly capable of. The final battle was fierce. The Dominion flagship unleashed everything it had, sending shockwaves through the battlefield. But the humans were relentless. Their ships darted through the chaos, launching missiles and firing energy beams with pinpoint accuracy. It was clear, now that the Dominion stood no chance. The human fleet had broken through every defense, every strategy the Dominion had prepared. In the final moments, the Virel's Wrath exploded into a massive fireball, its destruction signaling the end of the Dominion's reign. The remaining Virel ships scattered, their morale shattered. Thelia and the other members of the Galactic Council watched in stunned silence as the news reached them. The human fleet had done what the entire galaxy thought impossible. They had defeated the Virel Dominion and taken control of their fleet. David Moore's voice came through the transmission once more. The war is over. The Dominion is finished. But now it's time for the galaxy to recognize humanity's place. Thelia stood up, her expression grim. We underestimated them, she said, her voice low. And now we must face the reality of what humanity has become. The Council had no choice but to acknowledge it. Humanity had proven its might. The once dismissed species had emerged victorious, and now the galaxy would have to learn to respect them. The message was clear. Humanity had arrived, and there was no turning back. The aftermath of the battle left the galaxy in stunned silence. The Virile Dominion, once a fierce and dominant force, was now a shadow of its former self. The last of their warships had been destroyed, and their military power had crumbled under the unstoppable force of humanity's might. Earth's fleet had torn through the Dominion's defenses with an intensity that the galaxy had never seen before. In the aftermath, as the dust settled across the war-torn space, humanity stood victorious. But their victory was not just a military one. It was a statement. The galaxy would now know that humanity was no longer a small, insignificant species. They had risen, and they had proven that they could stand alongside the most powerful forces in the universe. David Moore stood at the head of Earth's command center, looking out at the stars. His face was unreadable, but inside, he knew this was only the beginning. Humanity had earned its place in the galaxy, but now, the real challenge began. Earth would no longer remain a passive bystander in the galaxy's politics. The time for peace was over. The time for respect had arrived. Back in the Galactic Council chambers, the leaders of the galaxy were still reeling from the shock. Thelia, the head of the council, sat in silence, her fingers pressed against her temple. She had spent her entire life serving the council, helping to maintain balance and order throughout the galaxy. She had seen countless conflicts, but never had she witnessed something like this. Never had an entire faction been brought to its knees so quickly, so decisively. We were wrong, Thelia said quietly, her voice filled with regret. We were so sure of ourselves. We thought we could control them. A representative from the Hethari Alliance spoke, his voice tinged with fear. We all did. We underestimated them. And now look at what's happened. The Virile Dominion is finished, and humanity has proven they are not to be taken lightly. Thelia stood up, her face hardening. We cannot allow this to continue. The humans are a threat to our power. If we let them rise, they will take control of the galaxy. We must stop them before they grow any stronger. But another voice spoke up, this time from the Drax representative. We've already lost. Humanity has proven they are more than capable of taking down any opponent. If we continue to resist, we risk a war with them. A war we can't win. Thelia clenched her fists. Then what do you suggest? Do we just sit back and let them take over? The Drax representative shook his head. No. We must negotiate. We have no choice. We cannot afford to go to war with Earth. There was a long silence as the council members looked at each other, their faces a mixture of fear and uncertainty. They had never been forced into such a position before. The once untouchable powers of the galaxy were now facing an undeniable truth. Humanity was not only a force to be reckoned with, but they had earned the right to demand respect. David Moore's face appeared on the hologram, his calm expression betraying the weight of the situation. The war is over, he said, his voice unwavering. The Virile Dominion is finished. You now have a choice. You can either continue to fight us, or you can recognize that humanity has earned its place among the stars. We will not back down. We will not be dismissed. Thelia's heart sank. She had been part of the council for decades, and she had seen countless empires rise and fall. But nothing had prepared her for the reality that the galaxy's power dynamic was shifting. She had always assumed the council would maintain control, but now she understood that humanity was not simply a minor player in the galactic theater. They were a new force, a force that would change everything. The meeting was adjourned as the council members reluctantly agreed to meet with David Moore and his Federation representatives. The galaxy would have to adapt to this new reality. There was no turning back now. In the following weeks, humanity's influence continued to grow. The Galactic Council reluctantly accepted that they could no longer operate as they had in the past. The Federation was now a major power, and humanity's voice would be heard at every table where decisions were made. Earth's fleet was small, but it was growing rapidly, and the other species knew they had to respect that. But while the Council was forced to recognize humanity's power, there was still resistance. Some factions refused to accept that humans could hold equal sway in galactic affairs. A quiet rebellion was brewing beneath the surface, and it wasn't long before new alliances began to form in secret. The galaxy was on the edge of a new era, one where power would no longer be held by the old guard. David Moore understood that this was only the beginning. Humanity had proven its worth, but now the real struggle began. There would be challenges ahead as factions that had once ruled the galaxy tried to hold on to their power. But David was certain of one thing: humanity would not back down. They would continue to rise, continue to show the galaxy that they were more than just survivors. They were conquerors. As the council convened once more to discuss their future, David Moore stood before them, his eyes locked on each of their faces. This is your chance to make a choice that will determine the future of this galaxy. We are here to stay, but it's up to you how we move forward. Respect us, and we will respect you. Disregard us, and you will learn why you should never have underestimated humanity. Thelia's face remained stone cold, but deep down, she knew that the galaxy was never going to be the same again. The age of the Council was over. The age of humanity had begun.